everyone. Well, Meta and the FTC are going at it. NVIDIA might be building chips in the USA. Will pigs fly? You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another edition of Techstrong Gang. We've got a great gang lineup here for you today. What a good-looking bunch of gang members, I must say. Looking at my monitor, I see these smiling faces. It's great. Let me introduce you to our gang members today. First of all, joining us from out west, where she hosts all kinds of radio stuff and is a marketing guru, and will be at RSA Live in Broadcast Alley, holding down the anchor spot for Techstrong TV. It's our very own Lisa Martin. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Hey, Alan, I'm great. It's great to be here. I'm excited for the show.
I'm excited to have you on. Moving west to east, I guess, right? Oh, no, still out west. We have another Silicon. How can I forget that? Sitting, right, we're not going to fly over Silicon Valley. He's at his office, his Lex Luthor office, high atop, atop the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
It's our
Russell Golden Gate Bridge
editor at large.
Yeah.
John Swartz.
Yes.
John, welcome back.
Well,
I know you were out at Atlassian. I've seen some of the videos. What a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we were in Anaheim. Then I went from Anaheim to San Diego to see my son. And I saw, I think, arguably the best and worst teams in baseball. I saw the Rockies play the Padres.
Easy on the Rockies. We've got a Colorado, even though
I know,
she's a Yankee fan.
Camberley, I'm sorry, Colorado contingent, but they look like they just gave up already.
They've been giving up for quite some time. I think they need to.
Yeah, and it was kind of, I felt badly. I love
They are the Pittsburgh Pirates of the West.
Well, the Giants.
Ooh, that was a low blow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
hockey team's doing well.
The hockey team is at the Avalanche. The Avs do well. Anyway, speaking of Colorado, she is our bolder person on the streets of Pearl Street Mall there, Camberley Bates. Hey, Camberley, how are you?
Good morning.
How's the weather?
It's spring today. You know, we had snow on Monday. It's spring today. Saturday, Friday, we had snow on Friday and Saturday. So there we go.
Yeah, it's Colorado. Nothing unusual there. Next up, all the way, I guess, to Florida, though, he has that Wall Street thing going on. JP, a name like JP and Wall Street go together pretty well. It's our own JP Morganthal. JP, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you, man? Good to see you.
It's good to see you, and thanks for coming on today. Always add a nice element.
You know, you watch all the CNBC and MSNBC shows, right? And they always have a couple of different backdrops, and I'm like, I like that backdrop better than my red wall, so I'm gonna go with one of those backdrops today. Good. Well, on my Techstrong TV, I like to do my Fort Lauderdale. See, I always feel bad.
I like
in the cruise ship picture or the palm tree picture. It just sends the wrong message for business. It's like, this guy's lazy. This guy's a peak comer.
He's doing it right.
So one of the things they used to do, so a long time ago, I used to do these really early morning hits for CNBC. And one of the things that they would take us to a studio called Beyond Picks, and they had the Golden Gate Bridge behind us. And sometimes it would have, here's a little inside thing. They would show it, and it was always a clear day, except days when it was raining, and so you see this clear backdrop. And anyway, they never adjust.
It's always clear in Studio 6.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's no fog. There's no fog in San Francisco in Studio 6. I guarantee
It's
it.
a fog-free zone. All right. So let's jump off into our first block for today, a meta mess, right? The antitrust trial the FTC had brought against Meta. Of course, this was, I believe it was brought by the previous administration, though.
It was brought by the Trump administration
in 2016.
2020.
The Trump 1 administration.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
That's what I meant.
Right.
And then worked its way
the
through.
first Trump administration ended in 2020, and that's when the action was actually initially started. But I'm sorry, they started it.
Right. Well, John, take us into it here. What's the story?
Yeah, I mean, mess is a good way of putting it. So the FTC claims that Meta has cemented its social media monopoly by acquiring WhatsApp and Instagram. Now, remember those acquisitions took place, God, more than a decade ago, and were approved by the FTC. In the intermittent years, uh, they Lena Khan came along, but before even Lena Khan came along, the Trump administration and his kind of animus towards Mark Zuckerberg resulted in an action. So remember the war between Trump and Zuckerberg. He got kicked off. Trump was kicked off of Facebook. It led to a lawsuit. This is a very convoluted story. But in the event, a federal court trial started in Washington, D.C. this week. Zuckerberg was the first witness, and he, in a sense, is kind of fighting off these allegations that he has a monopoly. The FTC claims that the purchases of WhatsApp and Instagram, which amounted to $20 billion, were part of this buy or bury strategy. And they come across, and they came across emails from 2012 where Zuckerberg is worried about the competition from these startups, and they decide to buy them. That the argument from the FTC is that they basically kept these things independent of Facebook and built this monopoly. Zuckerberg is saying, no, we have this wide, varied business. It's not polluted by this monopoly charge. And in a sense, he claims that their acquisitions created this broad discovery and entertainment space. It's not just a social media empire. So this is going back and forth. And again, for some context, going back to this weird relationship between Trump and Zuckerberg, in the last few months, Zuckerberg and Meta in general have gone out of their way to try to persuade Trump's administration from dropping the suit or easing off in their pursuit. It didn't really work. So we find ourselves now in this case. The one thing, the consequence that Zuckerberg faces, if in the event they lose, is some sort of divestiture. I'm not sure if it will go that far, but DOJ beat Google in federal court over a search engine monopoly case, and a judge is going to be hearing remedies which include divestiture or some sort of breakup of the company in that case. So there is a precedent, and Meta should be worried, and I think Zuckerberg is very worried given his charm campaign to try to dissuade this.
Well, can he just write a bigger check?
Yeah. That's another. You're right. They contributed to the inauguration. They settled as part of this lawsuit that Trump set up against or filed against Facebook with another check that they wrote. Zuckerberg moved into the neighborhood of Trump to be near him. I mean, they threw a ton of money at the administration, and this is where we are.
So I'm confused. Really confused, because couldn't Lena and FCC have resolved this the last 4 years? I mean, this is like you're saying right now, yes, we just had a new administration that came in, whatever the name is. The old administration had oversight of this entire process to bring it to trial.
No, I think Lena would pursue this. I think the Biden administration was, anti-monopoly warriors. They agree with it.
It's not this thing. It's not a Trump versus Zuckerberg kind of thing.
No, well, so
That's how it started.
That's how it started.
It started there, but it's still Lena.
Lena
and the
Khan.
FCC have pursued this to.
Well, Lena Khan did pursue it. She spent the better part of a couple of years pursuing not only this action, but multiple actions, including the Google action that the Department of Justice did. It's just that she didn't gain a lot of traction. We can go down a rabbit hole talking about why she wasn't more successful in certain aspects, especially around tech and Amazon, which was her main targets. It came down to kind of resistance from the FTC and the body of people who work for her. It was a lot of political action, but she really wanted this to happen.
Oh, no doubt.
The thing is, the date that got here to legal, this date was placed way beyond Trump or the current administration taking control of the presidency.
But the fact is, several other anti-monopoly investigations and actions the Trump administration had, the second Trump administration, the present administration, has kiboshed, right? Because they're not going to be bringing many anti-monopoly actions here. That's not who
No,
they
they're
are.
not.
Where the Biden administration certainly was a anti-monopoly warriors, Lena Khan specifically. So this is more in her speed. But when you look at the genesis of this, it was a Zuckerberg-Trump thing with all those lawsuits involved. Yeah.
It's very confusing because the tech bros, and before the tech bros, the tech companies were darlings of the Obama administration, right? Maybe too much so. They got too powerful, and then Trump ran into resistance from these companies when he was running or when he was president, which led originally to this 2019. It was June 2019 when the Trump administration announced they were looking into 4 companies: Amazon, Meta, Google, and I
Probably
believe
Twitter.
Amazon. So this goes back and forth. It's very confusing.
So yeah, but John, let's take the politics out of it. Okay. Let's take that out and say, is there within this FCC suit, is there legitimacy in what is being said about Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp and their domination of the social media place?
So, so when I was in law school, Camberley, my constitutional law professor, who had come from Stanford, where he had 2 star students. One was named Rehnquist, one was named O'Connor. You might have heard of them. His attitude towards these kinds of technology-based suits is they're a moment in time, and given enough time, they become irrelevant. Yes, I think when this suit was brought, or when the investigation was started, there was an argument to be made that Meta, was a dominant force, more than dominant, a monopolistic force in social media. But that was 6 years ago. And I think when you look at social media today, including things like TikTok, and YouTube Shorts, and LinkedIn, and everything, and X. Well, X isn't what Twitter was, but it's still out there, right? I would posit that Twitter was a bigger social media player in 2019 than X is today.
Well, the meta argument is that, right, there are a lot of choices now that there weren't before.
But here's the bottom line. As we sit here today, I don't think anyone's going to say Meta has a monopoly on social media. Facebook is boomer book for people like me, right?
TikTok is a younger demographic.
Okay. I mean,
X,
Instagram, my kids still use Instagram. So I'm assuming Instagram's still a power. And WhatsApp, look, I'll be honest, WhatsApp for me is when I'm international and people got to get a hold of me. And there are options for WhatsApp as well. There's Signal and all of these other ones that some of our DOD secretaries use for communication.
Well, the thing about the FTC, it's so highly politicized. That's just the way it's been approached.
Again, taking the politics out of it, from a pure lawsuit legal, I don't see how this wins. Like, I don't see how as we sit here today, I don't see Meta being a monopoly. Now, but law's a funny thing. They may say that at the time this was done in 2019, Meta was a monopoly, and should we punish them, or should there be some sort of retribution, compensation because of what happened then, even though, as it often does, the market has taken care of this itself. And that's going to be a legal question for a judge to decide. Do you say that as of 2019 they were a monopoly and therefore this is the penalty? Or do you say, hey, as we sit here today, the market has rectified the situation?
Who's the injured party there? That's what needs. If that's the case, who's the injured party? Right, the party that was. If there's a party that had their business limited or hindered based upon the fact that Facebook had such a dominance in the marketplace. That organization has the ability to then sue.
They could sue, right? Once
They could sue,
Meta
right.
is labeled
That's
a
right.
monopolist.
That's where this would go. Is it would open up the door for lawsuits.
So
for
who are we
businesses that
talking
could
about? What
claim-
was it? My page? What's
Oh, MySpace.
MySpace?
And
They
also,
did a
like,
good job. They
Snapchat.
did a good job of killing themselves off, but
Yes,
They did.
Ye-
did.
Yellow, actually, Ello would be one of the ones that I think.
yes, Yelp was one that was highly vocal too about what was happening
Yeah.
in a weird way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
are-
But John, to your point, sorry, the narrative perspective, and I look at this through the marketing lens, they're saying that, as we said a minute ago, hey, Facebook's saying there's plenty of competition with TikTok for sure. We know TikTok's key demographics. We know the influence in the election, YouTube, X, Snapchat, and others. So Facebook is very clearly saying, hey, this isn't just a friends platform. This is this platform for entertainment and discovery. And of course, the demographics vary based on platform, but they're clearly holding firm to that point of there's plenty of competition out there. We are not a monopoly.
And that okay, so the injured party would be a direct competitor of the social media. Is there an injured party all within the advertisers because of a domination? So if you look at saying, okay, Google, the cost of the advertising, there's a semi price fixing or whatever because of their ownership of that market and being able to hold that.
There are all kinds of things, but those are sort of secondary suits, right? The FTC represents the people, theoretically, the government.
Yeah, the DOJ, on a side note, is going to be going after Google on the online advertising side after they reach a settlement or a remedy.
They're
for the
never
search.
gonna. This stuff's never gonna see the light of day. guys.
I know.
It's not.
I agree with you.
Not under this administration.
I agree.
We're not doing that. Anyway, let's take a break. Let's come back and talk about some good news. NVIDIA USA says they're making chips here. I don't know. You're watching Techstrong, gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
So, in an article, also another article up on Techstrong IT, our newest site for infrastructure, semiconductors, and all that good stuff, we have a report that NVIDIA is embracing U.S. chip production. I don't know, I've heard this song before. Is this an empty hug, JP, or will they really be making chips here in the United States of America?
Well, they're certainly jumping on the bandwagon and the opportunity. We're talking about an organization that was riding high as the king in a $1 trillion market has taken a brutal beating based upon the effect of the geopolitical factors that are driving the impact of where they're sourcing their chips from. So from a shareholder perspective, from a future perspective, it's a good play. It's an easy thing to say. Will they break ground, or are they putting forth an opportunity to, wait out this administration and then see how things go? So I can put the message out there. And they talked about 3 factories in Texas. Here's the thing that so the first thing I did when I heard this was to go and identify the top 5 areas where we source silicon for fabrication, right? And Japan, 60% of global capacity comes out of Japan. Then Taiwan, South Korea, and Germany, where United States is not a leading sourcer of silicon for wafer fabrication. So what does that immediately tell you? We're still stuck in some form of import requirement in order to fabricate chips here in the U.S. And for anybody who's fabricating chips here in the U.S. is going to struggle with that. So the first thing you need to look for to see if this even makes a difference is what will be the impact of those on tariffs to those countries who are sourcing the wafers, and so because that's going to affect the price. Then you get to creating chips in America, which is a very high quality process. I mean, beyond high quality. And takes me back to watching Gung Ho and the thought of Americans creating Japanese cars and the and the battle they went through, learning how to do quality control, right? With the guy in the 10,000th car sticking his head out, right? And it's easy for Ron Howard to have made a joke out of it. But the truth of the matter is, American manufacturing doesn't have the same level of quality production as we find abroad. So you have a skills issue here. You have a cultural and attitude issue here. So who are you getting to work in these factories to produce these chips? Oh, by the way, the people who you probably really wanted, well, they just got shipped out to El Salvador.
Perhaps.
So the NVIDIA stuff it seems like it's more of a real thing, Alan, when you say is this just kind of like a lot of other companies just saying, let's do it. It's because like the first piece of that is TSMC in Phoenix, which there's already, when we say what's happening here, there's already a manufacturing facility and they're shifting.
Wait, no, hold on.
There will be a manufacturing facility.
Right. They've been saying there will be for a long time. And currently it's in Phoenix. Before that, was it Minnesota or Illinois or Ohio? This ain't the first time TSMC has said they're building a facility here. But you make a valid point, which is NVIDIA designs chips. They don't build chips. They basically they go to fabs for that stuff. So you need fabs to build these chips. Now TSMC would be a fab to do it. And they have spoken about building one in Phoenix.
Have they broken ground yet?
I don't know. I mean, here's the bottom line. Whether they broke ground or not, to build the fab, train the workers, look, it's a 3 to 5 year project.
Well, the only reason why I say that is because in their blog, they make the statement, Blackwell Chips have started production at TSMC's chip plant in Phoenix. Started.
Yes, I saw that too, that it was already happening. That was what they
so
intimated.
that means
message.
they've probably broken ground and they're doing it. But I think the last reports I saw is assuming there is a TMC and we don't have a war over Taiwan or whatever craziness goes on in this world, we're 3 to 5 years out from actually seeing. I don't know if Blackwell will be the chips that get produced there when it's all said and done. It might be the next gen even. Who knows?
Okay.
And wasn't some of this funding coming from
CHIPS Act.
The CHIPS Act, which is probably going to be undone by this administration, like everything else that came out of the Biden administration?
So let me I just did a quick pull up. TSMC's first chip factory in Phoenix started commercial production of 4 nanometer in 2025, in the first half of 2025. Factory is part of a larger investment with a second fab at 2 nanometer in 2028.
So if I'm not mistaken, the Blackwater, the new chips are 2. So you're looking at 2020. So you're looking at 3 years before that. But let me just say a couple things. First of all, JP, to your point about where silicon comes from, it has always been the way of the world that the leader nations import raw resources and export manufactured goods. England used to take wool and timber and put back out clothes and ships, right? That's how England, ruled Britannia. So that's not a bad business model for the U.S. Import raw material, export processed goods. I saw an interview with Tom Friedman from the Times a couple days ago on social media, and then I dug in and listened to it. And he had and whether you like Thomas Friedman or not, I know he's an opinionated guy. I personally love reading his books. I think he makes a lot of sense. But he had an interesting viewpoint on this kind of stuff. He said, we need to take a page out of the China book. What China did is they didn't raise their tariffs to the level they're at overnight. They gradually raised the tariffs to close that market off to US and other providers. What they did initially was said, please, please come in here. And they carefully studied what the US did well and what the US didn't do well. JP, to your point, we don't, whether it's cars or chips, there's some high quality stuff that perhaps we don't do well. And then they put maximum effort into doing well what we didn't. And it took, in the case of China, 25 years. But you're seeing the reality of it now, right? They have 25 years of practicing to do well what we don't. And during that 25 years, they kept raising their barriers to outside products. We need that kind of focus. We need that kind of true north to say, what's it going to take for us to be a chip power here? Do we have to import the island of Taiwan? I don't know what we have to do, but we need to have, it's not a 6 month, it's not a 2028, it may be 10, 20 years, but we need to study what they don't do well that we can do well, that we can put maximum effort into learning to do well, because this isn't, the problem, having done, you have your Wall Street thing, having helped put together a public company is you live quarter to quarter, right? And you don't have a chance to really have a true north. Most companies don't have a true north. We need as a country a true north with a real plan. And I know it sounds socialistic to say 5-year plan, 10-year plan, but we need a true north plan that transcends administrations, that transcends politics of who we want to be in this world, because this battle for supremacy, and I don't necessarily mean a war with guns, but this battle for supremacy, for the world economy and prosperity, is not something that's going to be won every 4 years. It's going to be won with a real U.S. economic strategy for the 21st century. We're 25 years late. It's time.
Well, yeah. So I give kudos to NVIDIA for doing this, and I don't doubt they're going to eventually do it. But the one thing that jumps out at me is they want to create, quote, hundreds of thousands of jobs and drive trillions of dollars in economic security over the coming decade. Then but I mean, here's my point. These things take time, and as you said, we are a very impatient. We have a short supply of patience in our society, and plus our government is set up so every 4 years we have a new change of plan or change of course. And in China, they can work around that. And I think that's the one thing. I look at what Apple and Intel say they want to do, what they intend to do. And I just, my eyes glaze over, because these are just talking points. These are not realistic goals. Not even close.
I mean, another example is our space program. I think all of us, well, maybe not you, Lise, but all of us were here in 1968 when we saw Neil Armstrong land on the moon. Yeah. What happened to our space program? What happened? We were supposed to go back to the moon. We're going to Mars. No, we're not going to Mars first. We're going to the moon first. Then we'll go to Mars. We'll stop at the moon. Maybe we'll go to Mars and then go to Jupiter. Don't go to Europa. That moon is forbidden to you, according to Arthur Clarke. We don't have a space program with a coherent. We can't formulate a goal.
The irony is that the Trump administration is putting an emphasis on the space program now, believe it or not. Because of Musk's influence. But
what do we do? Are we going to the moon or are we going to Mars? In the meantime, China's landing on the dark side of the moon. They found Pink Floyd playing money there. But, they're putting a new space station up. They have a plan that that was the whole point of Friedman's thing, is that we need plans.
That's what makes SpaceX very interesting, is that they have, in a sense, I don't know if you could say that they leapfrogged Space Force, but I mean, when you got chopsticks, taking back the rocket or whatever, you're kind of like going, okay, that's a big advancement. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And
But yeah.
The space program, 90%, and trust me, I watch them as they launch here, right from my backyard. 70 to 80% of what goes up is satellites, feeding into the network, the SpaceX network. The thinking that we've never accomplished is identifying something like the moon and being able to mine it for minerals. Now, if you look, we destroy our planet to suck out minerals, right? And it affects our planet when we don't really know all the minerals that are available to us on the moon. And we certainly haven't completed a process whereby we can go extract those minerals from that planet without affecting our own and be able to transport them back to this planet. Seems to me that really should have been the focus of the space program, right? Let's go figure out what's
or
up there.
if not the moon, asteroids, right? Bring a metal asteroid into and mine the heck out of it. They have asteroids that are worth trillions of dollars in iron or nickel or whatever.
Right. Why we still pull? Yeah, because it's expensive. It's peak. It's still peak. And
But we're missing that. SpaceX has done some cool things, no doubt. Chopsticks catching the rockets and everything. And at least Elon Musk, and I'm no Elon Musk fan if you know me on here, at least he has a goal of getting to Mars. That's his thing. They want to get to Mars.
I used to work for the space program, and I can tell you I did space shuttle projects with biology back in the 20-something years ago. And the focus problem was huge. I mean, launches constantly getting delayed. But what I pulled from that was before I was in marketing, so kind of like not thinking about what's the message they're putting out there. I thought NVIDIA's message here, the press release didn't specifically call out this is a response to tariffs. I thought they were aggressive. They said, we're going to build more than 1 million square feet of US-based manufacturing space. We're going to launch productions of 2 supercomputer manufacturing plants in Texas. And they forecasted, and this is, Alan, when you were talking about years, they said 12 to 15 months. These plants will be ramping up to mass production. That's a bit of a vague statement, but are we seeing here kind of the key elements starting to become available onshore? Are they beginning to fall in place? Does that signal that? Is NVIDIA leading that key elements?
Right. So Foxconn has been onshore for many, many years. They are an assembler of systems, as is the other company, West or whatever it was. So Foxconn is like the major assembler for a lot of server companies, hardware on storage devices. So what they're doing, so there's a big difference here. we were talking about the silicon grown. So that's TSMC in Phoenix. That takes 5 years to develop and bring online a new lab or a new new factory there. The Foxconn thing is saying, okay, I'm taking all the parts and pieces and I'm assembling that piece of it, much like we see the auto manufacturing being done, is the final manufacturing being done in the United States. So I think that's why they can come up within 12 to 15 months. And then you have the labor. You guys brought out the labor. I haven't heard that. And they're talking about doing a lot of robotics. So they're going to use the AI capability to really implement those factories and bring that up to speed. So we're going to see similar factories, I think, as I read it, as we probably see with what Tesla has done, and kind of similar kind of job descriptions, if you will, from a Tesla standpoint. But this is not like it's brand new, breaking ground.
No. But I thought, wasn't the Foxconn facility in Wisconsin and they kind of mothballed it?
There's a bunch of Foxconn, because if I go down a bunch of the data storage companies, one of them, they're using Foxconn to put their stuff together.
Perhaps. Let's hope so. Anyway, time for a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and talk about, hey, have a bunch of companies found the political will to do something about spyware? We hope so. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey everyone, we're back here on Techstrong Gang, and our third segment today, spyware spoilers. 21 countries have signed on to a voluntary pact. That means it may not be that enforceable, like sort of the Paris Treaty. But we're going to do something about stemming the proliferation of spyware. Lisa, what's this one about?
Yeah, this is interesting, Alan. You said nearly 24 countries signed on to this voluntary accord to address this rising threat that just keeps going up and up and up of commercial spyware that's used by some governments to track everything from journalists to activists and lawyers, similar targets by hacking into tech devices. This meeting occurred in Paris last week. Number of countries, including the UK, France, Germany, etc. The US was not one of them. But they had this 2-day meeting where they came together and said, we're going to sign this Pall Mall process, this code of practices for states. And it was launched in England and France last year in 2024, with the objective of really looking at concerns for national security, as well as respect for human rights, fundamental freedoms, international peace, and a much more secure cyberspace. So what I kind of took out of this, even though it isn't legally binding, the US is not a signatory. The US did try to do similar things back in 2023, but is this a big step in the right direction? It lays out expectations for addressing the growing use of these intrusive tools that are used to do harm. And also, could this lay out a framework by which then legal action could fall into place? I think one of the challenges they had, now 21 countries, is convincing other nations who might be active users of spyware to signing on, because the dangers are real. The data show that as many as 100 countries are using spyware. Google has data that demonstrates that as well. But is this a step in the right direction to come together internationally to start dialing down this cyber space insecurity issues?
Yeah, this is a real problem. If I'm not mistaken, the reason why the UK is sort of a leading role on this, and you mentioned the journalist angle of it, is there was a very high profile case in the UK where spyware was used to spy on some journalists about what they were doing, and an amount, and the UK has different libel laws and so forth than we do, and there was some serious both criminal and civil investigations and trials and tribulations over, I want to say it was one of the Murdoch newspapers there. Was it the Sun? I forget which one right now. But there was spyware used, and the edit. I mean, people lost their jobs over it and were disgraced and everything else. It was a mess. Look, I'm all for it, but if the U.S. isn't a signatory to it, China's not, Russia's not. I doubt Israel is.
Great points.
North Korea, Iran, the usual
Iran,
axis of evil.
Yeah. They were not on the list.
So I took a quick glance at it. One of the only thing that I saw, that very quick glance this morning, on the letter it was a 10-page document that was put out. So I didn't do it in detail. A lot of it seems like the very kind of soft commitments, but the major piece in there was the a ship that was selling spyware to other nations. So part of it is putting some laws around who you can sell to, who you're going to sell your software to that's produced in your country. So similar to what we're seeing with NVIDIA selling to China, it's like the government is saying no, you can't do that. So limiting who can get a hold of some of these things. I don't think that this spyware is. I don't know. Spyware doesn't seem to be like that's going to be that super advanced technology to develop. So I'm
it's
sure.
pretty cool because
Is
one
it?
version of it, Camberley, is the Israeli company who has the software that'll let you get into an iPhone, and that's something the U.S. has used, and it's been controversial, right? Do you have the ability, because you don't, they don't wait for a warrant, so to speak. They just, and that might be something that this is keyed against, because I thought, at least I think under the Biden administration, there was some sort of, and that might be what you're referring to, Lisa, back in 23, there was some sort of agreement over who you're going to use who can use that software, because theoretically, if you're a journalist or some other protected class or just a citizen, right? I think we still have a Constitution amendment about illegal search and seizure. I hope. And that's your property. And and if you've encrypted your phone, they cannot force you to unencrypt it, to give them the password. And, using that software, they don't really need your permission. They just do it. And that was the whole genesis of that. That was the 2023 story. Again, Israel's not a signatory to this, so I don't know how much teeth this has. It's, as they say in Las Vegas, it's a fine beginning, but I don't think it does anything at this point. But we can hope. We can hope. All right. John, you have a look on your face like the cat who swallowed the canary. Do you want to say something?
No, I'll throw something out that's it's not really related, but it involves data and personal data. So in California, I don't know if you did this, Lisa, but the Real ID, I had to go to the DMV to renew my driver's license. Yes, it's Friday. So in order to travel, unless you have a passport, you're going to have to use a Real ID as part of your driver's license. So I had to go back in to renew anyway, and they asked me if I would like to join the Real ID. And it's I don't know if you did, Lisa, but there are so many documents and personal information to pass over. I refuse to do it. I'll use my passport instead. And when
I
I'm looking
puppy
at,
chewed my passport, so I can't use mine. So I have to get a Real ID. I'm going in this week, and you're right. All the documentation that you have to prove, birth certificates. I mean, it's crazy.
the crazy thing is, like, every other day I get a card in the mail about a data breach, and I'm waiting for that one to if I join and become a Real ID and hear about some sort of data breach. So I'm just become extremely paranoid by all this. I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to be too dark, but
No,
it's just
it's
something
okay.
Is it more so than global entry?
Well, global entry,
More so what?
Are they asking more questions about you than a global entry would do?
Well,
Because
global entry, you have to do an in-person interview.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
which you have to do for the Real ID.
So we don't
Yeah.
have this in Florida. Our driver's license is a Real ID.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I almost think of this as a monetization play. Plus, there was lots of it's a total shakedown, I think. But also the other thing that was weird to me, sorry, Lisa, is Larry Ellison for years has been pushing for something like this, and there was always pushback. And now we're seeing, I'm not saying he has anything to do with it, but I just kind of resent the idea of my driver's license being useless as personal identification now in the state. Anyway, I got it off my chest. Sorry.
I'm glad you were able to get that off your chest.
I feel so
All
much
right.
better now.
Hey,
There's a lot of policy right now that is benefiting the ideas and concepts of some of the key people who have been investing in the tech sector out of Silicon Valley since 2000.
Are you thinking like Palantir or just among
Teal.
others?
No, I'm talking about like Teal and the people like that.
Well, he's involved in Palantir. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a Palantir guy. Yep. All right. Hey, we're gonna wrap. This is a great Techstrong gang. We've got a full day of Techstrong, or at least a few couple hours more of Techstrong TV to follow. Check it out. Some of it is John at that Atlassian conference, I believe. But until tomorrow, we hope you've enjoyed this. Alan Schimmel. We're out.